Susan's hands trembled the moment she noticed it, tiny, unnatural holes forming inside her baby's nose. At first, she thought it might be a rash, maybe an insect bite. But as she leaned closer, her stomach dropped. These weren't scratches or bumps. They looked like something was burrowing into her child's skin. Her baby, Roy, squirmed and cried as she pressed gently to check. The holes seemed to deepen with every breath, and Susan felt pure terror. Was this some kind of parasite? A disease? She had no answers, only panic. That same afternoon, she rushed Roy to the doctor, but instead of reassurance, she was met with something far more chilling. After one look, the doctor's face drained of color. Without a word, he ordered immediate tests, left the room in a hurry, and shockingly locked Susan inside with her baby. Her heart pounded. Why would a doctor do this? What did he see? Anger fueled her fear. Susan slammed her weight against the door until it gave way. Bursting into the hallway, she demanded an explanation. Staff members froze as the doctor finally stammered out a few words that made Susan collapse to her knees. But let's step back. How did Susan's nightmare begin? Susan, a 40-year-old single mother, had always avoided doctors unless absolutely necessary. She prided herself on handling things herself. But Roy's condition was unlike anything she had ever seen. The night before, she had been on a disappointing date with a man she'd met online, a man uninterested in her baby and barely in her. The next morning, everything unraveled. Roy woke restless, scratching his nose constantly. When Susan checked, she discovered the strange holes. At first, she hoped it was something minor, maybe a splinter, maybe dirt. She even considered using tweezers to dig out whatever was inside. But every attempt made Roy wail in pain. By midday, she was certain this was beyond her control. Swallowing her dislike for doctors, she booked an emergency appointment. As she sat in the waiting room, other patients couldn't help but notice. Whispers filled the room. Some kids pointed. Parents pulled them back, shielding them from the sight of Roy's nose, now riddled with holes. When the doctor finally examined him, his reaction terrified her more than the condition itself. He had never seen anything like it, not in textbooks, not in training. Roy didn't even flinch when the doctor pressed the inflamed skin. His nose had gone completely numb. That was the moment panic flickered across the doctor's face. Desperate for answers, he uploaded photos to a private medical forum. Minutes later, a reply came from another doctor. The message was short, urgent, and horrifying. Isolate immediately. The condition could spread. When Roy's test results returned, they confirmed the worst. The doctor, pale and sweating, knew he had to act. He called the police. He called for isolation. And when Susan returned from the restroom, she found herself trapped, her baby worsening by the second, and officers racing to the clinic. What had they discovered? And why did the police need to be involved? The sound of heavy boots filled the hallway as 3 armed officers stormed into the clinic. Susan clutched baby Roy tightly, her voice cracking, "Please, someone tell me what's happening." Instead of answers, she saw weapons pointed at her, and the terrified faces of nurses scrambling to disinfect every surface. The doctor, trembling, finally spoke. Roy's condition wasn't just unusual, it was dangerous. The strange holes in his nose were caused by a rare, flesh-eating virus. If left untreated, it could spread rapidly and become lethal, not only for Roy, but potentially for anyone exposed. That was why the police had been called. Strict quarantine protocols. Susan felt her knees go weak. A virus? How had her baby even gotten it? The doctor pressed her for details about their recent activities. She recalled their hike through the forest just days earlier. Roy had been touching plants, dirt, even moss along the trail. That seemed the only possible source. The date with the uninterested stranger was quickly ruled out. As paramedics prepared isolation gear, Susan's fear turned into defiance. "You're not taking him from me," she shouted, tears streaming. An officer gently explained, "You'll stay with him, but we need to move you both to a specialized facility now." Wrapped in protective blankets, Susan and Roy were rushed to an isolation ward at a nearby hospital equipped to handle infectious outbreaks. For hours, doctors worked tirelessly. Antiviral medication was administered, fluids were pumped, and Roy's small body was carefully monitored. The holes in his nose stopped spreading, but the waiting was agonizing. Meanwhile, police officers traced the infection's source. The hiking trail, Susan had mentioned, was sealed off. Scientists confirmed the presence of a non-native invasive plant carrying the rare virus. Crews in. Hazmat suits uprooted it, ensuring no other child or hiker would suffer the same fate. Back at the hospital, Susan watched in relief as Roy slowly improved. The medication worked. Within days, the holes began to heal. His cries returned painful but reassuring proof of life and recovery. Doctors assured her he would make a full recovery, though scars would remain as reminders of what they had survived. The panic that had once consumed the clinic gave way to gratitude. The quick action of the doctor, the police, and the hospital staff had saved Roy's life. But above all, it was Susan's determination to seek help, despite her fear of doctors, that made survival possible. Weeks later, with Roy healthy again, Susan reflected on the ordeal. She realized how close she had come to losing everything. The hiking trail reopened only after the threat was completely eradicated, and her story became a sobering reminder of how hidden dangers can lurk in the most ordinary places. For Susan, it was more than just survival. It was proof of a mother's strength, the refusal to give up, no matter how terrifying the unknown. And for baby Roy, it was a second chance at life, pulled back from the edge of disaster.